Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. It's me, Rob. I am at my shop early on a Sunday morning working on one of my Onsrud routers because unfortunately while it was running the other day a piece of wood got caught in between the hard stop here and then this motor, and it caused this motor to instantly stop while that other motor kept going, and so it tweaked it, which throws an out of sync error and it shuts the machine down. So I'm here trying to fix that problem, and I thought I'd make a video kind of going over what I'm doing because I feel like if you own a router, this is one of the more common problems that you might run into, and it involves physically realigning the machine as well as like some zero realignment. And so it'll kind of give you an idea of like, you know, what it entails to get something like this back going. So the first thing that I had to do, let me spin the camera around. The first thing that I had to do, because this machine was actually stopped right over in here, I powered the machine down, and right here I've got two plugs right here and here, and those are the power to the X and U motors, and that allows me to freely push the gantry all the way to the front. And I pulled this all the way against the hard stop over here, and I pulled this guy all the way against the hard stop over here, so that way I know that both of my motors are in line with each other. From there, I pulled this servo motor, the cover off here, and if you can see, so I have the cover on right now, but let me see if we can see. So there's a mesh gear that runs along this track, and so sometimes when it goes to a hard stop like that, you know, they say that it gets a little slop in there. And so what the tech told me to do was I loosened the bolts on this plate, and I physically pulled the motor away from me, and then I freed it from the track here, and then I pushed it back in gently, got some nice firm pressure, and I re-bolted it down so that way it has a snug, it made it up to this track nice and snug. And then you test it for movement so it's not grinding or crunching. From there, because it knocked it out of alignment, I think my bridge shifted a little, and so I had to realign the bridge. And so to do that, since I have this all the way at the front, I know that this phenolic table is square with the machine bed. So I put a dial gauge on one side of the machine, and you've got to take both of your covers off, and up under here on each side you've got some bolts that hold the bridge down. And so unfortunately when you knock the bridge out, it involves having to move this whole bridge. And so what I had to do was I got my dial reading, and I realized that it was that far side that was out. So on this side I loosened all of these bolts except for one bolt I kept tight as a pivot point, because I want this side to kind of stay where it's at, but it needs to be free to pivot. And then on this side over here, I came and I actually unloosened all 4 of these bolts. And you want to be careful about these encoder cables. You don't want to mess these up. But once I had all these loose, I was able to knock the bridge gently. I needed to come this way. And what I had to do was, I gave it a pretty good pull. And I did that while the dial indicator was down on this side, because I took the reading from down there and then I matched it up from over here, and I was about 1/8 or so inches off. And so that brought me to alignment with the table, and then from there I was able to bolt, tighten everything tight. Something that I found out the hard way 2 times now is that when you go to move the bridge, or you do any of those, any loosening of those bolts and moving that bridge, there is so much weight on that you need a good, you need to get those things tight. Those suckers need to be tight, and so you're gonna need the right tools. You know, I was originally not using a heavy duty enough ratchet, and so I wasn't getting them tight enough. And what was happening is I would start to run it and everything was fine, but then as it would do a tool change or whatever, some of that stopping and starting caused the bridge to shift again on me, and so then I had to you know, it started to go out again, and so I figured out that it got out of alignment again. And so just make sure that those bolts are super snug when you go to do any kind of alignment on these. So from here, I've got the machine into alignment, and I'm going to tighten everything up. And what I've got to do now is I've got to find my 0 points. We're going to reset our 0 because I'm pretty sure we're going to be off on our 0. So that's what we're going to do. So what I'm about to do now is I'm going to take a V-bit and I'm going to manually put this up in the machine, and we're going to use the tip of the V-bit to go we're going to manually align it to the very most right corner of the machine. And the V-bit makes it really easy since it comes to a point to kind of line it up. We're going to see if I can do this with one hand. There we go. It's not ideal. If you have help is kind of what you want here. But all right, so now what we're going to do is I'm going to manually jog this machine to where I feel that point is right on the corner. Try to move this camera so you can see it a little better here. Maybe one day I'll get a better camera setup. Now this is going to have to do. And so what I'm going to do is I'm turning my speed way down, my movement speed. That looks pretty close. So if you can kind of see here, we are right on that corner. All right, so from here, I'm going to reset the zeros, and this is not meant to follow along because, you know, I'm not qualified to be a tech or anything like that. So, you know, I'm just going to kind of show you what I have to do. But again, this is if you do not know what you're doing, or you're not 100% confident, don't make any changes without being advised from a qualified technician. So I am gonna zero out my X, and I'm zeroing out my U. I'm gonna do an off and on. All right, and so from there, to get things to take into effect, we're going to turn this guy off. We're going to count to 10. I should have tripped the servos first, but anyway, all right. So now we're going to turn this guy back on, and that should reset the X and Y 0 coordinates to this point. So, you know, from this point, we want to try to pick up a tool and just see how far off we are. So now that we reset the X and Y down there, you know, hopefully, my hope is I don't have to do too much here, because this is still factory installed, so it should be square with the machine. The machine was running good before, so I'm hoping that just making that small little adjustment up there puts me really close to being able to put up, you know, pick up my tools, because I really don't, you know, want to do too much adjusting, if that makes sense. All right, so what I'm doing is I'm having the machine pick up a tool, and I'm going to go very slow, and I'm going to stop it. Sorry, that's my son. He's honking my forklift horn. Stop, Archie. Camera over here. So if we come over here, we can see that I'm off just a little bit in the X. So we're gonna have to put in a new X value, and it should be good for the whole run. The X should be good for all the 12 tools. So I finally got it all, you know, in line where it's picking up tool number 1 good, and then I tested it on tool number 12, which is the farthest tool away from number 1. And as long as I'm picking up tool 1 and picking up tool 12 good, you know, theoretically you should pick up everything in between. All right, so I did skip some steps recording because it involved going into the FANUC, and, you know, that's kind of enter at your own risk. And so I don't, you know, unless you know what you're doing, you know, I don't want to be responsible for people, you know, following exactly what I'm doing. But what I did is, I started a tool change on tool 1, or tool pickup on tool 1, and it was off in both the X and the Y. So I looked at the X first, it was off, and then I had it go down a little further, stop it, and I was also off in the Y direction. So what I did is I went into MPG mode, which these have MPG mode, so gives me fine control with the dial, and I basically manually put that bit into the tool as if it was going to do a perfectly aligned tool pickup. And then I looked at the machine positions for the X and Y. So, you know, when I know it's perfect, it gives me an X position in inches and then a Y position in inches. So from there, I took those numbers and I multiplied by 25.4 to get into metric. And then I went into the FANUC and I said, this is the X position, the new X position for all of them. And then I just did the Y position for the first tool. And you just start with, I just started with 1, because if that works for me and then all the other tools work for me, then there, you know, it saves a bunch of steps. So once I inputted the new X value and then the new Y value, I then tested it. It picked up good on tool 1. Then I went to tool 12 and it was also good. So I know that the machine is aligned to the table, and then also, you know, it's aligned to the tool holder. You know, my advice is, you know, if you find yourself in a position like this, before you start making any adjustments, really kind of ponder the problem and try to figure out what would be the solution with the least amount of movements. Because my first time around, I got all out of whack. I started trying to move the bridge and then move the tool rack in line with the bridge, and you know, it just kind of spirals from there. So you know, just really, you know, I knew that the tool rack was aligned with the table because it had the manufacturer marks. So, you know, I knew to probably not mess with that, because if that's, you know, parallel to the table, then it was probably my bridge. And so, you know, just try to figure out a solution that requires the least amount of movements before you actually start moving stuff. So from here, now that I've got everything in line moving slow, I'm just going to go back and just double check that my bridge bolts are nice and tight. And then I'm just going to throw a new spool board back on here, and I should be good to go. So hopefully this kind of, you know, provided some insight into, you know what you need to do if you have a machine that you need to realign if it gets knocked out of alignment. Nothing wrong with getting a tech on the phone and doing it, but it's also nice to kind of see and know as much as you can on your end, so that way, you know, when you are talking to a tech, it makes it easier for them if you know, they can give you an instruction and you can, you know, follow it pretty easy. So, but anyway, thanks for watching. We'll see you guys in the next video.